Signal 2, 5 Northeast, cell 108. Be advised, I have an inmate complaining of difficulty breathing.
A DeKalb County officer alerts staff of an inmate having a medical emergency inside its detention center in May 2019. He's 64-year-old Clarence Manning, unable to walk and in serious pain.
His cellmate stepped out and said he's throwing up.
He seemed shaky, and in my opinion, it didn't seem as if he would be able to sit up.
As I was rolling the wheelchair out of the room, he just started shaking, like he wouldn't stop shaking.
A short time later, the U.S. Army veteran went unconscious.
Third floor, 1016.
And never woke back up. The cause of death, strangulated indirect inguinal hernia, which means he died because the blood supply to his intestine was cut off. Shirley Nelson is Clarence's sister.
How did you find out that Clarence died?
The priest and the chaplain and the deputy came and told us. Standing right there. He told me they were doing an investigation and they would let us know, which they never did.
4 days after Clarence died, dozens of people protested outside the jail, concerned with inmate treatment.
You cannot treat people like animals just because they locked up.
Since Clarence's death, 4 more inmates have died, 75 since 2001. Most not convicted of crimes, just too poor to bail out and wait for their day in court, just like Clarence, accused of assault. For more than a year, Clarence's family wondered what happened to him inside the DeKalb County Detention Center. They didn't understand why he died from a hernia, not an elusive condition difficult to treat. But then, we got a hold of audio recordings that paint a picture of what went wrong. The recordings are part of an internal affairs investigation by the sheriff's office. Listen to one officer explain the response she received from the jail's medical staff after asking them for help.
Nurse Reed, she said, we just had a Signal 2 from that same inmate. There's nothing wrong with him, his hernia problem. That's not a major issue. He's going to be in pain sometimes.
Tanisha Ramson was the jail's doctor at the time. You can hear an investigator frustrated with Dr. Ransom after learning it took 2 officers, a sergeant, and a lieutenant to convince her a wheelchair was needed to pick up Clarence.
There's obviously something wrong when that many people are calling to say, hey, I need medical to respond, to come and get him. There's an issue there.
According to jail medical records, Clarence repeatedly complained about his hernia for months. The first time on February 19th, again on March 4th, and at least 2 times the day before he died. One nurse noted on his chart that Clarence was in acute pain and wants to go to Grady Hospital. It never happened. This officer makes it clear who she thinks is at fault.
So I feel like it could have been prevented, but I don't think medical perceived it as being serious.
And what was your reaction when you learned the truth?
I was mad and I was hurt. Nobody deserves to die like that.
This was not anything like I had ever seen before.
Natalie Woodward is the family's attorney.
But at the end of the day, the deputies and the correction officers are at the mercy of the medical providers. And the medical providers are contracted companies that the county contracts with and the counties depend on to give this medical care to.
DeKalb County uses a company called WellPath to staff the jail's infirmary. It declined an on-camera interview. Instead, it sent this one-sentence response, emailing, WellPath has a policy of not commenting on pending litigation out of respect for both the Manning family and the legal process. We believe that further comment would be inappropriate at this time. Over the past 10 years, DeKalb County has paid WellPath about $9 million a year. It's a billion-dollar company with contracts in jails and prisons in 34 states. And no stranger to controversy over the care to detainees, with more than 1,400 lawsuits filed against it and the company it merged with in 2018.
She asked for medical care. She was denied that medical care over and over again.
From medical malpractice,
they didn't treat me like a human.
to wrongful death lawsuits.
According to the lawsuit, jail staff ignored his condition and returned him to a cell.
And claims made by former employees who said the company denied providing medication when it became too expensive.
If it costs too much,
We didn't give it to
oh
him.
well.
In response to the lawsuits, WellPath posts this on its website. Any person may file a lawsuit, especially in a restricted environment, such as a jail or prison, adding only about 7% of the lawsuits have resulted in a payment of any kind.
EMS is 10-7.
And to me, when you refused to send the help that he needed, you was making a judgment. And that's not your job. Your job was there to give him the medical treatment that he needed at that time. When you get to be to where you can judge people based on whatever is going on, then you ought to be God. But God ain't gave his job to nobody.
DeKalb County Sheriff Melanie Maddox declined to respond to Clarence's death or the medical care WellPath provides to inmates. We also reached out to the jail's former doctor, but didn't hear back from her. Right now, the county's $9 million contract with WellPath stays in place, and it will continue providing medical care for detainees.